Welcome dear students. So today I'll be starting a new exercise on compound interest using formula, and the exercise number is exercise 3C. So here what we are going to do is we will be learning how to find compound interest if the rate of interest is given to be half yearly or quarterly. Okay, now all of you know, if the compound interest is rated as per annum or annually, your amount formula is this one, right? Now if the compound interest formula becomes, or the rate becomes half yearly, then there will be some changes, so but it's not a difficult one. So half yearly means it's just half, right? So what you have to do is you have to divide the rate by 2. Okay, and in the power, see, in the power we have n, right? So in the power also you have to include 2. Okay, so this is how we need to do. So you will divide rate by 2, and in the power you will multiply by 2. Okay, power won't be divided by 2, you have to multiply power by 2. Similarly, if the rate of interest is compounded quarterly, then you have to divide the rate by 4 and the power gets multiplied with 4. So these are the only small difference in the formula if the rate of interest is quarterly or half yearly. Okay, now in this case, let's observe this table carefully. This table I have taken from your book itself. Okay, so here number of years is given. Now if the rate is, okay, so just forget about this, part. Now if the rate is given to be yearly or per annum, when number of years is 1, then your formula becomes, when n is 1, then a will be equals to p into 1 plus r by 100 to the power n, which is 1. This is simple. Okay, right. Now I told you, just forget about this. Now if number of years is 1.5 years, then what you do is first work for 1 year. For 1 year it is simple, it will be this much. But for half year, your formula is going to be this one. Okay, are you able to see? For half year, what you will do is you will do r by 2. Okay, so it's like earlier formula only, r by 2. Okay, but this 2 is kept in denominator, so that can also be done. So r by 2 into 100 to the power half into 2. All of you know it is 2 into n, right? And n is how much? N is half. Okay, so you have to multiply them ultimately. Again observe it. So for 1 year it will be this much. For half year you have to make the rate half, and the power has to be multiplied with half. Okay, remember this. Okay, so this is all about your half year. Now for 2 years, a formula is simple. It will be, in place of n we'll just put 2. Okay, but for 2.5 years, so again like earlier one, so for 2 years it will be this much. For half year it's gonna be 1 plus r by 2 into 100 whole to the power half into 2. So this entire thing will give you the amount for 2.5 years. You need to observe this very carefully, because the same thing will be useful in the problems. Okay, so this was all about the rate being compounded yearly. Now if the rate is compounded half yearly, then your job is easy, because formula says it will be 2 into n, where n stands for number of years, right? So 2 into n, 1 in first case, n is 1, so that's why it becomes 1. So in case of this, n equals to 1 by 2, it is 3 by 2 actually, right? 1.5 means it is 3 by 2. So that's why in place of n we'll write 3 by 2. Similarly, for 2 years it will be this much, and for 2.5 years it will be 5 by 2 into 2. 2.5 means 5 by 2. Okay, so this is easy. Compounded half yearly is easy, but in case of compounded yearly, you have to be careful with this kind of stuff, that is number 2 and number 4. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's see the first question for the day. if the interest compounded half yearly, if the interest is compounded half yearly, calculate the amount when the principal is this much, P is given to be this much, rate of interest is 5%, and the duration, that is N, is given to be 1 year. Okay, so these are things given to us. Now since it is compounded half yearly, your formula becomes this much. This is the formula for calculating the amount, right? Now just put the value. P is 7,400. Now R is 5, and in place of N we'll write 1. Okay, so do the simplification. So when you simplify this entire thing, this becomes 41 by 40, and outside the power becomes 2 into 1 is 2. Okay, so when you simplify this entire thing, you get your answer to be 7,774.63. okay, and this becomes the amount for this particular problem. All right, pause the video and note down your solution. Right, so we have another question. Question number 2 says, find the difference between the compound interest compounded yearly and half yearly on rupees 10,000 for 18 months at 10% per annum. See, try and understand the case. So you have to find two compound interest. One is compounded yearly and another is compounded half yearly. Okay, and for that your data given is principal is 10,000, number of year. Okay, actually the time is given to be in months, but N has to be in years. So 18 months means 1.5 year. All of you know that. And rate is given to be 10%. Okay, 10% per annum. So this is the first case. So rate is 10% per annum. Okay, now when interest is compounded yearly, now from the first one, okay, for 1.5 year, when it is compounded yearly, amount formula is this much. Please remember this. Okay, so that's why my amount becomes, okay, so this is my problem, right? So my amount becomes this much as per that formula. Now just put the value of R is 10%, right? Principal is 10,000. So just simplify this. Okay, so when you simplify this, this becomes 11 by 10. When you simplify this, this becomes 21 by 20. 2 and 2 gets cancelled, so only 1 is left in the power. Now when you multiply this, okay, so denominator 10 and 20 can be cancelled with 10,000, and after multiplication you get amount to be 11,550. That means this is the amount if the interest is compounded yearly. Okay, now if, okay, so after that what you need to find is you have to find the compound interest. So this is the amount, right? So your compound interest becomes amount minus principal, which is turning out to be this much. So this is the compound interest which we got when the interest is compounded yearly. Let's observe this question now, or this part. Now when the interest is compounded half yearly, then your formula is this one. This is the direct formula, right? So we'll just put the values now. Okay, so in the number of years is given to be 1.5, which is 3 by 2. Yes, so just simplify this. This becomes 21 by 20. Now when you simplify this entire thing, this turns out to be this much. So this is the amount, right? So your compound interest will be amount minus principal, and this leads you to this much to be your compound interest. Now observe this and observe this. Which one is more? Obviously the interest that we get if the compound interest or the rate of interest is compounded half yearly will be more, right? So this interest is more. So that's why we say that the difference between compound interest will be bigger minus smaller, and when you find the difference, your answer turns out to be rupees 26.25. Okay, so this will be your answer for this case. Pause the video and note down your solution. Let's take this question now. So question number 3 says, a man borrowed rupees 16,000 for 3 years under the following terms. Okay, so for 3 years, remember. Now 20% simple interest for first 2 years. See, the tenure is given to be 3 years, but for the first 2 years, he is borrowing 16,000 for 20% simple interest. Okay, that means now 1 year is left. Okay, and for that 1 year, 20% compound interest for the remaining 1 year on the amount due after 2 years, the interest being compounded half yearly. Find the total amount to be paid at the end of the 3 years. See, the case is like this. 16,000 is borrowed, and for the first 2 years, he is borrowing for 20% simple interest. Okay. Now, after the tenure for simple interest gets finished, now after 2 years, how much ever he gets. Okay. Now, that entire thing is being spent for 1 more year on 20% compound interest. Interest being compounded half yearly, right? Do not get distracted with the background noise. Okay, right? So that's why for the first 2 years, let's find what the amount that we are going to get. So for that, I'll calculate the simple interest. So formula is this one. Principal is 16,000, rate is 20, time is given to be 2 years for the first 2 years, right? So calculate this. This becomes your simple interest. Okay, now we got the simple interest. Now let's find the amount. So all of you know that amount will be interest plus principal. So add them up, you get your amount to be 22,400. That means after 2 years, your amount, okay, the amount that you have borrowed becomes this much. Now this becomes the principal for the next compound year, compound interest, remember. Okay, so for the remaining 1 year, your principal. Okay, so you have to find amount, and remember the interest being compounded half yearly means your formula becomes this much. Okay, so principal is this much now, right? Rate is 20, right? All of you know 2 into 100 is 200, and simplify this, right? By the way, n is 1, right? So 1 into 2 becomes 2. So simplify this, okay? So you get your answer to be exactly 27,104. Okay, so this is the amount. Okay, so this is the amount that you get at the end of 3 years. Okay, is that clear? So the total amount to be paid at the end of the 3 years will be rupees 27,104. Pause the video and note down your solution. Let's take one more question. Ashok invests a certain sum of money at 20% per annum compounded yearly. Okay, so try to understand. Ashok invests a certain sum of money at 20% per annum compounded yearly. Now we don't know what amount they are talking about. Geeta invests an equal amount of money at the same rate of interest per annum, but this time compounded half yearly. If Geeta gets rupees 33 more than Ashok in 18 months, calculate the money invested. So this is the problem that we have done in question number 2, I guess. Yes, in question number 2 we have seen this kind of problem. Okay, now Ashok and Geeta, both of them borrows same number of or same amount of money at the beginning, but Ashok goes for compound interest compounded yearly, and Geeta goes for compound interest compounded half yearly. Okay, and here Geeta gets more by rupees 33. Okay, so that's why for Ashok, let's see, when interest is compounded yearly, your amount is going to be like earlier one. Your amount is going to be this much for compounded yearly. Rate is given to be 20%, remember. Okay, and time is 18 months, means it is 1.5 years. So for 1.5 years, your amount formula is this one, isn't it? So put the value of, okay, so let me, by the way, let me take the principal to be y. Okay, so if your principal is y, then when you simplify this, okay, when you simplify this, this becomes 6 by 5. Simplify this, it becomes 11 by 10. 2 and 2 gets cancelled, so your power also becomes 1. And when you simplify this, this 6 into 11, 66. So 5 into 10 is 50. So this becomes this much. So this is the amount received by Ashok. Received by Ashok when the interest is compounded yearly. Okay. Now for Geeta, interest is compounded half yearly. You know that. And in that case, your amount formula becomes this much. Right? So it will be P is Y, rate is 2. And this time my n is going to be 3 by 2 in case of compounded half yearly, right? So simplify this, 2 and 2 gets cancelled, so in the power we have only 3. So when you simplify this, you get 1331 divided by 1000 y. Okay, so this is the amount that was received by Geeta, and amount received by Ashok was this much. Now if you find the difference between them, that is Geeta's, obviously Geeta will get more, right? So whatever you get for Geeta, from there if you remove or subtract the amount received by Ashok, that will give you 33, right? So you just need to solve it and find the value of y. So that y will give you what? That y will give you the amount or the money being invested by both of them. Okay, so initially here in this place you can write let p equals to rupees y also. Okay, that will be better for you. So you do that and you will complete the sum by yourself. Okay, with this we close. Thank you very much.